What is up, guys? My name is Lex. We're here in Vegas playing 5-10 no limit today at the Bellagio. Let's go. My last session in Vegas for this trip. In about 4 hours, I'll be heading to the airport to fly back home to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. In this hand, I call a raise on the button from an under-the-gun player with pocket eights and end up going heads up to a queen 3-4 2-diamond board. I flop second pair, and on this particular board, when my opponent bets $30, I can't let go of a pair this easily. It's hard to make a pair in this game. He can still have some ace-high hands, some king-high hands that he's betting with, so I make the call. Turn card 6 of hearts, now bringing 2 flush draws on the board, and my opponent continues to bet for a $90 sizing. When he bets on the flop and then continues here on the turn, I don't think he has under pairs of the queen. He's most likely representing queen X hands like king-queen, queen-jack, ace-queen. Over pairs like aces, kings, he can still have some flush draws, ace-high flush draws, king-high flush draws, or some double barrel bluffs with ace-king trying to get me off a pocket pair. So I get a little sticky on the turn and call $90, and the river card is the jack of hearts. Doesn't improve me at all. Backdoor flush gets there, and now my opponent decides to slow down and check over to me. I decided to just check back my pocket eights, and it's a good thing I didn't try to bluff on the river because he shows ace-queen for top pair, top kicker. Not really happy with the way I played this hand. I think I got a little bit too spewy there calling on the turn. Moving on to the next one, I've got pocket tens raised to $30 from early position. Folds all the way over to the big blind who makes the call. Heads up in position to a 10-7 deuce board, flopping top set. My opponent checks. I decide to trap here with top set and check this one back. Turn card ace of hearts. My opponent now in the big blind leads into me for a $50 bet. I think a lot of the time here he's going to have a medium-sized ace hand or a flush draw or straight draw. I could call here again, allowing him to continue to bluff if he is bluffing, but if he has a strong hand after checking back the flop, I think it's time to put in a raise. I make it $250 back over to my opponent, and he folds. This next hand is a spicy one. I'm in the hijack with queen jack offsuit. I raise to 30. A tighter reg to my left re-raises me to $100. Now, what makes Vegas different than, let's say, Florida or Texas is that a lot of Vegas regs seem to implement a 3-bet or fold strategy, meaning that they don't like to overcall many raises pre-flop. They either like to come in for a 3-bet or they like to fold their hand. Now, when you implement this strategy, you're going to have a lot wider of a 3-bet range. He could have hands like 8-9 suited, pocket 7s, ace-jack offsuit, king-10 suited, all these hands that players in Florida or Texas may just call a raise with. Tight Vegas regs tend to 3-bet or fold these hands. So when the action's back over on me, queen-jack offsuit is just way too weak of a hand to call a 3-bet out of position, but I could turn this hand into a 4-bet bluff. If he is 3-betting me wide, I could put pressure on those hands, so I decide to re-raise here, 4-bet to $300 back over on my opponent. My reasoning for doing this is to try to get him to fold out those ace-jack offsuits, king-queen offsuits, 8-9 suited, king-10 suited, all these hands he might be 3-betting me with pre-flop that won't be able to call a 4-bet. With around $1,400 in his stack, I think he'll be jamming all in with aces or ace-king or king. So when he calls, I put him on middling pocket pairs like 10s, jacks, queens, maybe ace-queen. We go heads up here in a 4-bet pot, out of position to an ace-high board. I completely whiff on this board with queen-jack offsuit, but I could have aces. I could have ace-king. I would play those hands the exact same way, and if I did have aces, if I had ace-king, I would bet pretty small on this flop. So with my bluffs, I'm going to bet small as well, setting up a nice turn jam if I decide to go for it. I put out $150, and my opponent calls. Once he calls here, I get a sickening feeling in my gut that I might be punting off my entire stack to this tight Vegas reg. Well, the turn card's a 3 of clubs. He's got about $900 left. Should I give up here and check, or should I go for it?
And you have?
You called me on the board between the queen 10, 10, ace, and you called it a straight.
I finally work up the courage and go all in here for about $800, and my opponent insta-folds. No sweat. Thank God we got a little out of line there pre-flop as a bluff, and very out of line going all in with Queen Jack, but luckily for us, it worked out in our favor this time. With my heart rate still elevated from that last bluff, I finally looked down at a big pair, kings. I raised a 50 over a limp. The hijack calls 50 and limper calls 50. 3 ways to 8, 9 deuce rainbow. Under the gun checks. I decide to check. Looking over at the hijack player, he looked pretty interested in this flop, and he does decide to bet $70. I decided to check on this board, one, because my hand doesn't need too much protection, and also allowing players to bet worse hands or bet with bluffs. Once I check out the hijack stack, he's got about $750 or $800 behind. I think this is just a spot I want to be putting in a check raise. I could be check raise bluffing here with some straight draws as well, so I decide to make it $280. If he calls here, it'll set up a nice stack to pot ratio to jam all in on the turn. I like to try to play some hands a little bit tricky. Sometimes it doesn't work out for me and I either let my opponents get there or I lose a big pot, but other times it makes my opponents very curious and they're kind of confused. By check raising here, it does look a little bit bluffy. I mean, he may be thinking to himself, well, if this guy had aces or kings, wouldn't he just bet the flop? Why would he check over to me? Maybe he thinks I'm weak. How could I fold a pair or pocket tens? That's what I'm hoping is going through his head. Maybe he's just got a hand like Jack 10 for an open-ended straight draw, and I do want to charge those hands as well. After about 1 minute of thinking, my opponent puts in a $280 call. We're going here to the turn, which is a complete brick. It's the 4 of clubs. My plan on the flop was to check raise and then jam the turn, but now I'm thinking to myself, what is the best way to get this guy's entire stack? If I jam all in here on the turn, it's going to look super strong, and he may hero fold a hand like pocket tens or queen 9 or jack 9, and I would hate to see that happen. If I check to him, though, maybe he'll think I was bluffing on the flop. His hand's too strong to do anything but jam, and he'll go all in himself. So I decide to now slow down and check over to him, and unfortunately, he checks back. Last card here is the 5 of clubs. After my tricky plan didn't work on the turn to get him to shove a pair, I think it's time now to go all in. Pray he didn't get there with a straight or 2 pair or slow play to set. I put him all in for his last $550. He doesn't snap call right away, which means we have the best hand. Now the waiting game is on. We are hoping for a call, and he goes into the tank for over 2 minutes.
In Spain, it is quite fresh. It's possible. No. I can try this. You go like that. It's very, very good, brother.
Thank you.
You fucked his brains up. Check. Very good. That's the reason he called.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what he had.
No. He probably has his time. But the way you play it, you make him call the way.
After 2 minutes of thinking, eventually my opponent makes the call. We get paid off here with pocket kings. Our stack is looking pretty nicely. About 3 hours left to our flight. And we get into another big spot. The cutoff player makes it 30. Jack 10 of hearts in the small blind. I decide to 3-bet to 120. Back over to my opponent, who now 4-bets me to a very small sizing of $260. Facing such a small raise size, only 2.2x here, I feel like he's going to have aces a lot of the time, but I just cannot fold a pretty hand like Jack 10 suited for only $140 more. I mean, come on, it's just too cheap. I decide to make the call. We're going heads up here at another 4-bet pot, and the flop comes out king 10 deuce, 2 diamonds, 1 heart. We flop second pair, backdoor flush draw. I check over to him, and he continues for another small bet of $120. Well, we didn't come all this way to fold second pair, backdoor flush draw. We could still be beating ace 5 or ace 4. The bad thing is if he's got aces, kings, or ace king, he's just milking me here. But I decided to make the call, and the turn card gives us way more outs. It's the 3 of hearts. So now we have a pair. Now we have a flush draw. If he does have aces, we actually picked up a lot of equity. I now check over to him. Looks like he's got about $1,000 left. And he bets out around $500. I've got middle pair and a flush draw and a 4-bet pot out of position, and my opponent bets over $500 with $500 left. What do we do?
All in.
Calling? Oh,
Okay. You prefer 2?
No, once is
Okay.
fine, yeah.
one time?
I go all in and get pretty quickly called by my opponent. This could be a punt here because we're most likely always up against aces, ace, king, or kings in this situation. But the reason that I went all in here on the turn is because I'm at a position, if I'm going to call $500 and he's got $500 left, when I do get there with 2 pair, trips, or a flush, I want to get the max when I do. It's also still possible he could have a hand like ace 4 suited, ace 5 suited for a straight draw and flush draw, ace queen as well, and he'll either call off with worse hands or just fold out hands with equity. So I decided to go all in, and he pretty quickly calls. We're running this board out one time. 4-bet pot over $3,000 in the middle. We got to get lucky, and we do. It's the jack of diamonds on the river. I hit 2 pair, my opponent shows aces, and we end up winning over a $3,000 pot here. Yeah, I played pretty fishy in this hand. I called a 4-bet out of position with jack 10 suited. I called a flop bet in a 4-bet pot with second pair, and then I check jammed all in with second pair when my opponent only had $500 left. Pretty fishy hand by me, but there's 2 reasons behind this play. One, this game is significantly smaller than the normal game I play back in Florida. Trying not to sound too big time, but these stakes just don't mean as much to me when it comes to the dollar amount. A $1,500 buy-in is just much smaller than the Texas games or the Florida games that I've been playing over the past 2 years. So I feel like I can get a little bit more out of line in these games. And also, I'm trying to make fun, exciting content for you guys. When I'm filming, I don't want to play like a nit. I want to make things exciting. I want you guys to come back for more and want to watch next week. So that leads to a little bit of punty style, a little bit of aggressive poker, a little bit of fishy poker. But hey, it worked out for us this time. Now having almost a $5,000 stack at this 5-10 game. Cruising along here about 2 hours until my flight takes off back to Florida. The table's looking good, very deep stack, so I decided to take a note out of Garrett Adelstein's book and force everyone to do a $20 mandatory straddle under the gun. Alright, that's just a joke, an inside joke making fun of the Hustler Casino Live, Doug Polk, Garrett Adelstein drama. Alright, enough with the jokes. Back to the poker. I flop top pair on a queen high board. I check, and the initial raiser checks back. Turn card 6 of spades, I lead out for $110, and my opponent calls, and the river card is the jack of clubs, giving me top 2 pair. I am running hot in this session. When my opponent raises pre-flop and then doesn't c-bet this board, I think a lot of the time he's going to have a hand with showdown value, like a smaller pocket pair, or maybe a pot-controlling queen 10 or queen 9, a weaker top pair. So given the fact that I do have a bluffy, spewy, fishy image, I want to take advantage of that. I mean, I have been getting pretty out of line so far this session, so I decided to go for the max here and overbet the size of the pot with top 2 pair, make it $600. Back over to the initial raiser. He thinks for a little bit of time and calls $600. I show top 2 pair, and it is good. And this ends up being my last hand here for this Vegas trip. A nice almost $4,000 win here at the Bellagio. But it is now time to rack up my chips, head to the cage and cash out, head to the airport and go home. All right, guys, that is it for this one. We've made it to the airport, flying back to Florida tonight. It's a red-eye. I'm getting back at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to be quite rough, but I flew JetBlue this time. It's going to be more comfortable than those nasty-ass Spirit flights. Anyway, as for today's session, I ended up winning almost $4,000 running hot. I cracked aces with Jack 10 of hearts, making 2 pair on the river. I got kings and played it a little bit funky and stacked my opponent there. I 4-bet bluffed with queen jack offsuit and got him to fold on the turn. Basically every single thing went my way and we won a lot of money on the session. I played about 3.5 hours, but I'm here at my gate. I'm kind of tired. We're gonna watch some movies, maybe get some sleep on the ride home. I gotta catch my flight. It's right back there. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, I'll see you.